Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we're going to be catching up on some of the news and notes, checking on some of the injured players and some new injuries to add to the list. Going to be also looking at a preliminary Barracuda's lines, and this was much harder than I originally thought it was going to be. And then what am I looking forward to as the Sharks finish up their preseason games in North America? So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and just take the 2 seconds, hit that subscribe button right now, hit the little bell. That way you know whenever new episodes come out and when we go live. Spoiler, Friday night, we're going to be going live. We're going to be discussing what happened with the split squad games. So before we kind of get into the news and notes and I sat down and looked at the Barracuda roster and tried to make the lines and all that fun stuff. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you guys by BetOnline. BetOnline is going to cover the season with more props, odds, and lines than before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So Sharks, a little bit of news. They had a practice today after the preseason game on that nobody could really do anything with since no stats, you couldn't watch it, et cetera, et cetera. So they had some practice today. Some more guys kind of added to the injury list. So kind of start with that. Markus Nutivaara didn't practice today. He's dealing with a lower body injury. David Quinn feels pretty confident about him being able to get back here soon. But still, you don't like to see these things happening this late into training camp with the season starting next week and guys getting added to the injury report. So Quinn said he's not day to day. Well, of course, that's what he's going to say, and he's not worried about it yet. So we'll see. He was supposed to apparently have gone down to Ontario, but was kind of a last minute scratch. So we'll see how he goes with that. And then some updates with some of the other injuries. Barabanov was on the ice this morning, but he's wearing a no contact jersey, so he was getting out there, skating a little bit, not practicing yet though. So it sounds like with him, they're probably being. My guess would be it's probably a soft tissue injury that they're trying to slowly kind of ramp him back up and get him ready for. Not a doctor. Again, this is just me trying to read the situation, assuming it's a soft tissue injury that they're trying to, you gotta start working a little bit, but you don't want to, overexert yourself in those soft tissue injuries. As we all know, Erik Karlsson, famously with the groin, where, sometimes like if you don't just let it rest and heal and you try to come back a little too early or try to push it a little bit too much, that's where you have some bigger issues. Oskar Lindblom also missed practice as well today. But Quinn did say that he's getting close to returning, and they thought he might actually have been out there today. So we'll see if they get him in for any of the preseason or the split squad games, if they get him into one of those. If not, if they just kind of hold him out and wait until next week when you have the exhibition games. So that's kind of all an update on all the injury news. The Barracuda also did sign forward Mark Liwiski, who was came as a tryout for the Sharks. So again, Liwiski just turned 21, 6'1", 194 pound, can play center or left wing, left-handed shot. Played the last 4 years with the Kelowna Rockets, where he had, in 63 games last year, had 24 goals, 22 assists, 46 points for 46 total points, 116 penalty minutes. So definitely brings that edge that we know that Mike Grier loves to add. I guess Joe will in this case, but again, you're signed to an AHL deal. If we've seen guys kind of working through that recently. Nick Cicek, AHL deal. I think Montana Onyebuchi is a potential guy where if he has takes another big step this year, where he could be one of those guys who goes from an AHL to an NHL type of deal. But Joe Will said of, quoting from Joe Will from the press release, Mark's a rugged two-way forward. He's coming off his best season of junior. We're excited for him to join the team. So there you go. Another kind of depth piece. And we'll get to the Barracuda roster here and my projected lines. Much harder to kind of put together a projected lines. And my lines are probably going to be way off and probably going to be pretty bad. But I was trying to have some fun with him and stuff. So we'll get to that here in a minute. And the other kind of news, of course, Ben Gaudreau and Mason Beaupet were both sent back to juniors. Gaudreau back to Sarnia, and then Mason Beaupet back to Spokane. Kind of expected sooner rather than later, especially since the Sharks already have 6 goalies on, between Dell, Emond, Capo Kakinen, James Reimer, Strasban. Yeah, they're missing one. Itu Makanemi. There we go. Between all those guys, they have plenty of goalies. So I'm sure Friday night we'll see Reimer and Capo get the starts and probably play all the games as they're continuing to try to ramp up for the season starting next week. So that's it for all the kind of news. And also, of course, the other big news coming out today, all the Russian players will be allowed to play in the Global Series event in Prague. There was worry, if you're kind of new or you're catching up on this or missed it, Czechia said they didn't want any Russian players playing, especially after what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, the war going on there. And, there was a lot of, and very understandable. I'm not trying to make, pick sides here about who's right, who's wrong. That's not my, anyway. But, Russian players, they just wanted to go play, do their job, et cetera, et cetera. So, so it looks like Barabanov, if he's healthy, and the other Russian players who might get to go, Svechnikov, probably kind of the only other one who might get it realistically. Yeah. So, all those guys, they'll be fine to play in Russia or in Prague. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if there's any, kind of like crowd backlash or if they, treat it differently anyway, but just be something interesting to keep an eye on. So, but yeah, they're all good. They'll be able to play. That hopefully that situation is taken care of. So before we get into the Barracuda lines, how I would construct them, which was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Let's take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know BetOnline is the number one source for your football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for your sports wagering information with live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. They're the fastest and easiest way to check out all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so I made my Barracuda lines. And so I'm projecting this for after the Sharks get back from Europe, when they have to go from their 27 man roster back down to the standard 23 man roster. So I'm that's how I'm basing this roster off right now. So we'll start with at the top, the first line. I would have a first line of Daniel Gushin, Thomas Bordelot, and Max Veranu. That line gives you a lot of scoring punch. Gushin, we know, the Russian sniper, how we've seen his shot and how he can score. Bordelot has already proven that he can score in the age, couple games, but be able to score. He can super creative. And then Max Verano, who was the SHL MVP last year. This line is going to give you a ton of scoring and a lot of punch. I think this line could very well be a low tier NHL line, but it'll be super fun to watch. And I think that puts Bordeleau in a great spot. I assume if Bordeleau is back in the CUDA, they're going to give him all the minutes, every situation, so that way he can kind of quickly get up to speed and get ready to be an NHL player, because I think Bordeleau is just going to be too good to be playing in the AHL for very long. So I know there's the talk of, well, just let him play down there all year. At some point, you got to let him make the step. But anyway, I think this puts them, I think this is a really fun line. I love it. We've already seen the Gushin Verano, a little bit of chemistry there in the win Tuesday, whatever. What are the preseason games? Tuesday's preseason game. So, second line. This one a little bit. CJ Seuss. I think I'm saying his last name wrong. CJ Seuss. Tristan Robbins, Brandon Coe. So again, if you're going to kind of maybe notice a little bit of a pattern with some of these lines where it's maybe like two young guys and kind of more of an older guy to kind of hold down the fort. So again, Robbins, creative guy. We know how well Coe can score. We've seen it with his hands. And then CJ Seuss, who can also score really well in the AHL level. So, and again, just kind of being that adult on the line for these guys. That's a really fun line there. If Robbins is dishing for Coe, sign me up. I think that's a super fun line. Same thing with Robbins, where he's not as far along on the Bordeleau train, but getting him NHL ready, so that way next year he can start to, push for one of those NHL jobs as well. And I think they really do want to try to make him a center. I know when we interviewed him a long time ago, I need to try to get Tristan Robbins back on the podcast. Mental note. He likes playing center over wing. He feels like he's more engaged with that. And again, this line, I think you're going to be able to add more scoring, which is something just the Sharks organization in general has struggled with the past couple of years, is scoring and scoring on a more consistent basis. So real second line there, CJ Seuss, Tristan Robbins, Brandon Coe. Third line, got a little bit. Jeffrey Viel, Lord Jasper Weatherby, Mitchell Russell. And this line was kind of my thrown together line of just, I didn't know where to kind of put these guys in. And so I figured, let's just make the misfit line here of guys. And we know Russell can score. VL, we've seen, of course, in AHL, you have to have kind of your tough guy lines or anything. But VL can add a little bit of punch there. And Weatherby, again, I think his NHL future is probably a 4C. So getting him ready to kind of play those more defensive minutes in the AHL with your third line there, I think that's kind of that good training for him, this type of situation. And we know Weatherby's played played NHL games and stuff, and he was kind of the first line center for the CUDA last year. It just speaks to the depth of the CUDA right now compared to where they ended the season last year. So going from 1C to 3C, just because of the additions. If you want to swap Weatherby and Robbins, I'm fine with that too. But again, I think Robbins has a higher ceiling, so that's why I want to give him more kind of opportunities. And Weatherby, he's going to be, since he's played NHL games, and he's most likely going to be a little bit more defensively responsible. So kind of let him continue to work on that role. And so that's my line there. So, and then the fourth line, Adam Raska, Andrew Agazzino, Ozzy Weisblatt. This is kind of your energy. You got Raska and Ozzy on the same line. Go at it. Just cause chaos as your high energy fourth line. Then Agazzino can kind of be the adult on the line, and then he also can score as well. So legitimate scoring threats on all four lines, which is something we haven't seen from the CUDA in a long time. But yeah, I mean, among the forwards who I kind of had to leave off just because of, again, there's is a much deeper team, Barracuda team. So Ethan Cardwell, I'm assuming, will probably be heading back to Barrie. I know they're going to keep him around for a little bit longer, but just with the way the Sharks development system has been, they like to kind of let these guys marinate for as long as possible. So I assume he's going to go back to Barrie and for one more season where he'll be kind of an overager, and you expect to see the Brandon Coe jump that we saw from him. Dylan Hamelic, the second round pick for the Sharks from a few years ago. You might be heading to Wichita, buddy. Mark Liwiski, who they just signed, again, might be heading to Wichita, or going to be healthy scratch type of guys. And then, I think that's just about everybody. That leaves Eklund and Gadovich, who had left. Eklund, Gadovich, and Reedy. If one of them, comes down type of situation, then you would kind of move things around. But I wasn't sure what to do with that. I kind of want to see what happens with those guys. So I didn't really include them right here because I think all those guys are kind of NHL caliber guys right now. So defensively, Nick Cicek, Ryan Merkley. So my kind of extra guy, I have Jacob Megna, since he's not waivers exempt, as like kind of the seventh defenseman for the Sharks. And if Merkley's not going to be playing minutes, you might as well just, if he's going to be your healthy scratch guy, just put him in the CUDA and just let him be that guy right now. So, and then as my first pairing, Artemi Knizhov and Santeri Hadaka as my second pairing, and Derek Pouliot and Montana Onyebuchi as my, there's your third pair of defense. And then with Mandel and Itu Makanemi as your goalies, I assume, especially at the beginning of the year, Strauss-Mann's probably going to get a fair amount of starts. And then when Dell gets back, again, he'll have to go through waivers to be sent down to the Barracuda. So there is always that worry with goalies if they're going to make it down or not. But Dell will be kind of the guy who gets some spot starts. And we'll see with Makanemi how he's kind of progressing from his injury. He's just started to take the ice again. I mean, we really just saw a picture of him on the ice for the first time all off season. So I assume Dell and Mann will probably split the starts to kind of as Makanemi gets back to form, and then they'll kind of figure things out from there. So that's my kind of Barracuda lines. Again, much harder to do now than it has been in the past couple of years. Just speaks to the seeing this prospect pool finally starting to fill out. Doesn't mean all of them are going to be stars, all of them are going to be hits, and everything like that. But, at least I think the Barracuda are going to be super fun to watch this year. And I'm going to do here on Locked On Sharks, we're going to do a much better job trying to cover the Barracuda and cover these young players and how they're progressing. So make sure you guys are subscribing for that. Before we continue, look at kind of last things we're looking at here before the last preseason games, at least in North America. Do want to let you guys know about Locked On NHL. Thank you guys, of course, for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you hit the little subscribe button. We're going to be doing more YouTube stuff this season, especially right after games. So go do that right now. But when you're done listening to Locked On Sharks, go check out Locked On NHL. They've got you covered as we're getting ready for the season to start. I can't believe it actually starts next week. It's pretty crazy. But go check them out. Wednesdays is always Western Conference Wednesday, where they're going to focus on the Western Conference teams. And then on Thursday, it's always really fun. They have the power rankings episodes where they just did on this Thursday, they did the top 10 defensemen who they think is going to win the Norris. Again, I know I heard Victor Hedman. Victor Hedman's an amazing player. Dude, Cale Makar is just, it's Cale Makar's trophy until they decided they don't want to give it to Cale Makar anymore. So go check out Locked On NHL wherever you get your podcast, and of course, subscribe on YouTube as well. So tonight we have the final of the Sharks preseason games, split squad between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks. It would be really fun if it was like a round robin thing where it was like split squad. Yeah, anyway, whereas, like Sharks are playing the Knights and playing the Ducks, and the Ducks are also playing the Knights. It'd be really like the little triangle. Anyway, I don't think that's happening, but I guess they would run out of places to play because nobody's playing in San Jose. Anyway, I digress. But Sharks are going to be playing there. We're going to probably see, I'm assuming on each team, we'll see 2 NHL lines, and then we'll kind of see some of these other guys who are bubble players are kind of competing for these last spots and how they perform. So I think you have to start there with the bubble players or these young guys who are going to be making a claim for the job. So I'm assuming Lindblom and Barabanov will not play. Again, just with these injuries, you want to be cautious with them. That way they're not lingering into the regular season, especially Barabanov, who's your top line forward, and Lindblom, who's probably going to be your second line forward. So how can Eklund and Bordeleau kind of take advantage? These are the 2, of course, that we're kind of watching the most. How can Eklund and Bordeleau kind of take advantage of this opportunity where, if Lindblom and Barabanov, if these injuries linger even longer, potentially win a starting job from the Sharks. So those are going to be the big ones. We've seen Eklund. He hasn't really been lighting up the score sheet like he did last offseason, but he's playing a much more complete NHL ready game. He was playing shorthanded minutes. He's been playing on the power play, 5-on-5, kind of doing all the things that coaches want. I'm not expecting Eklund to come in if he makes the Sharks out of camp to be, your top penalty killer, but it's just good to have that in his back pocket where, yes, Coach Quinn, Coach Quinn, you need me to play some penalty kill for a little bit. I can go out there and give you a shift type of thing. And it's not going to be a detriment to the team. So you never know. Guys get hurt. One of your penalty killers is in the penalty box. It's just good to have a little bit more well-roundedness. So, and then with Bordeleau, we see the creativity, we see the what he can do if he can kind of, again, know when to, okay, let's just make the smart play here instead of trying to kind of go for the home run play. But we see how he makes his line mates better. Want to kind of see him doing that. Again, I know he's got kind of a big jump between, with Bonino and Nico Sturm being your third and fourth centers. It's probably too much to ask for him to jump all those, but at least make a final good impression, to potentially go to Europe and be those extra guys just in case, and then get you ready when you go back down to the AHL, like being that guy waiting, ready to go. So if the Sharks need you, boom, you're up, and you can make it so they have to make a decision on now sending you back type of situation. So those are what I'm looking for with the young players. With the lines, I want to, I know the poor Logan Couture, he's never going to have actual real line mates every time. But I want to see the lines continue to grow chemistry. I know Barabanov's not playing, and we know what we're getting with the Hurdle Couture or the Hurdle Timo Meier Barabanov lines. Like that line is fine. We know exactly what we're getting there. But seeing Couture playing with LeBanc and continue, for LeBanc kind of knock off that rust and, get their chemistry back. And then, if it's Lindblom or Eklund, if Eklund's in there, again, making it hard for David Quinn to say like, no, we have to keep him type of thing instead of sending him back to the AHL. So, and then the third line, we've seen, these guys play really well and kind of not together, but playing really well on different lines. So how's the Noah Gregor, the Nick Bonino, and the Cunnin line? I think that's going to be your third line. A lot more exciting than the third line we saw last year. Cogliano, Matt Nieto. But seeing these guys again, how can they provide a spark? How can they kind of be that energy line for the Sharks that they've really lacked until Bordeleau showed up at the end of the season last year to provide that energy on that third line. So, and then of course the fourth line, Nico Sturm, Steven Lorentz, and Matt Nieto. Matt Nieto, I think like if Scott Reedy keeps playing the way he's playing, like Matt Nieto's, they're going to have to really look at how if Matt Nieto is going to be the guy. He's going to get it because of, he's a veteran, et cetera, et cetera. But Scott Reedy might be breathing down his neck or Jonah Gadovich might be breathing down his neck for his spot here soon. So we'll see how those lines work. The defense pairs, again, right now it's a little tough because, Nutivaara is not going to be playing. So we'll see if Scott Harrington, who had a really good game the other night, if it sounds like he's probably going to be playing with Carlson. So if he can have another good game, maybe win, earn himself a contract. We know we're going to get the Ferraro-Vlasic pairing most likely, and then Shimek Benning. And then if I'm assuming Magna Merkley, if again, these young guys, Magna Merkley fighting for jobs, how they kind of leave a lasting image for David Quinn as he starts to kind of pair down the roster and get ready to head off to Europe. So that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you guys, of course, making Locked On Sharks your first listen, free and available wherever you get podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. But make sure you guys are following along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram over at Locked On Sharks. I'm going to try to clip as best as I can tonight. I don't know which games are going to be on or both games are going to be on. We'll see. It's probably going to be craziness for 2 games going on tonight. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So make sure you guys follow along there. Wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, all those places. So keep listening there. Or YouTube, hit the little subscribe button. Makes you feel good. Just ding. And then follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. That'll do it. Thoughts to Tua. If you guys don't know, I'm a huge Dolphins fan. I'm wearing my Tua jersey. I've been rooting for Tua since he was busted on the scene at Alabama, wanting him to be on the Dolphins. And, it sucks to see that he was really starting to play well this year. And what happened on Thursday night, it was really tough to watch the end of the game. So just hoping he gets back to being healthy and we could get to see Tua kind of come out and prove why he was worth all the hype. So that'll do it for me today. Be back. So Friday night, we're going to do a live stream and then be back on Monday with a regular episode. So till then, bye, friends.